Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Safety of Hindus and minorities in Bangladesh under question after ISKCON priest's arrest. 16 years since 26/11, India remembers victims and salutes courage. And Pakistan faces political chaos as crackdown on PTI sparks nationwide protests. How safe is Bangladesh for its minority communities? This pressing question looms large as violent unrest sweeps the nation following the arrest of Chinmoy Krishna, a prominent Hindu priest associated with ISKCON. Prabhu, who has been at the forefront of rallies demanding protection for minorities, particularly Hindus, now finds himself at the center of a storm that has drawn sharp international criticism. Allegations of persecution, targeted attacks and political neglect have reignited concerns about the safety of Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh. Here's an in-depth report.
Tension has gripped Bangladesh since the arrest of Chinmoy Krishna, a leader of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and a vocal advocate for minority rights. Das was detained at Dhaka's main airport on sedition charges, sparking widespread outrage. His arrest followed allegations of disrespecting Bangladesh's national flag during a rally in a Chattogram in October. As news of his detention spread, violence erupted in Chittagong, Dhaka, and other parts of the country. Protesters, primarily from Hindu communities, clashed with security forces. During one confrontation, hundreds of Das's supporters surrounded a police van, transporting him to jail, forcing it to halt. Security personnel responded with tear gas, while protesters retaliated by hurling stones. The violence has left Hindu communities, who comprise just 8% of Bangladesh's population, vulnerable.
ये जो राष्ट्रद्रोही मामला उनके चिन्मय कृष्णदास ब्रह्मचारी के खिलाफ की जो दायर किया गया है, ये जरा सा बेबुनियाद बेइल्जाम। मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि जो न्यू मार्केट की जो स्वाधीनता स्तंभ है, जो वह हमारा देश की जो नेशनल फ्लैग है, इन लोगों का कहना है जिन्होंने मामला किया है कि उसके खिलाफ जो गौरिक पताका, वो ये भी कह रहा है कि यह हमारा धर्म की पताका है। मैं इसका पूरा विरोध करता हूं। कोई गौरिक हमारा हिंदू या सनातन धर्म की कोई धार्मिक पताका नहीं है। यह गेरुआ कलर है, क्योंकि गेरुआ एक ऐसा रंग है जो हिंदुओं का जो सात्विक, जो वैराग और जो निष्ठा की ये जो रंग है।
Reports of temple desecrations, arson and looting of homes have surged since the political upheaval that saw former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina flee the country in August. Minority groups accuse the interim government of turning a blind eye to their plight, while authorities dismiss the allegations as exaggerated.
I believe that the arrest of Sri Chinmoy Krishna, it sends a message to the Hindus and the other minority leaders in Bangladesh, which is to toe the line of the interim government's narrative, or you can face severe consequences. As you know, Sri Chinmoy Krishna has been an outspoken advocate for minority rights, and I do believe that his arrest at this point of time, it underscores a very disturbing pattern of state inaction and bias, to be honest. And at this point of time, from last 6 months, what we are seeing is that the temples have been desecrated, homes of minorities have been attacked, and perpetrators are roaming free without any accountability. So yes, and yet individuals like Sri Chinmoy, who have actually raised legitimate demands for their community's protection, are being silenced and denied bail.
The All Minorities Association of Bangladesh held a significant protest at the iconic Broken Chair Monument outside the United Nations office in Geneva. Joined by activists from various faiths, Hindus, Christian, Buddhists, and Ahmadi Muslims, as well as Swiss nationals, the demonstrators called for a secular and inclusive Bangladesh. They alleged systematic violence against minorities, including loss of lives, destruction of property, and widespread human rights abuses under the interim government. Protesters also highlighted the plight of Prabhu Chinmoy Das, appealing to the international community for his immediate and unconditional release.
So the arrest of Prabhu Chinmoy Swami and Das, the principal priest of the ISKCON temple, he is not only the principal priest, but he is also a leader of all faiths. So not only Hindus, but Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Ahmadis, and like other communities inside Bangladesh. He is a representative and a voice and an icon. So his arrest, of course, is a matter of grave concern. And here in the United Nations Geneva, the 17th Minority Rights Council, we have raised this on multiple platforms, and we are appealing to the international community to seek his immediate release without any condition or restrictions. The current situation in Bangladesh is extremely concerning and highly volatile when it comes to targeting of minorities, be it places of worship or business, educational institutions, in other aspects of ordinary life.
Demonstrators at the Geneva protest also invoked the ideals of Bangladesh's 1971 liberation movement, which sought to establish a secular nation free from oppression. They condemned groups like Jamaat-e-Islami and Al-Badr for their role in the atrocities during the war and criticized their modern-day influence on Bangladesh's socio-political landscape. In response to the escalating violence, international leaders have raised their voices in solidarity with Bangladesh's Hindu community. British Conservative MP Bob Blackman recently addressed the issue in the UK Parliament, calling the ongoing attacks on minorities unacceptable.
The International Society of Krishna Consciousness, who run Bhaktivinoda Manor in Elstree, the largest Hindu temple in this country, in Bangladesh, their spiritual leader is under arrest. Hindus across Bangladesh are being subject literally to death by their houses being burnt, their temples are being burnt, and there was an attempt today in the Bangladesh High Court to rule that ISKCON should be banned from the country. This is a direct attack on Hindus. Now, this is a threat from India now to take action. We have a responsibility because we enable Bangladesh to be free and independent. Now, whatever the change of government has been in Bangladesh, it cannot be acceptable that religious minorities are persecuted in this way.
India too has expressed deep concern over the developments. The Ministry of External Affairs issued a strongly worded statement condemning the violence and urging the Bangladesh to ensure the safety of Hindus and other minorities. However, Bangladesh dismissed India's concerns, labeling the situation an internal matter. The arrest of Chinmoy Krishna Das and the ensuing violence have sent shock waves across the Hindu community in Bangladesh and abroad. As unrest mounts, minority groups fear further reprisals in a nation grappling with political instability and sectarian strife.
November 26, 2008 will forever remain etched in the memory of every Indian as a day of unprecedented terror and unthinkable loss. This year marks the 16th anniversary of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, a horrifying reminder of Pakistan's role in exporting terrorism and the price innocent lives pay for its policy of nurturing terror groups. A report. 16 years ago, on November 26, 2008, one of the most horrific terrorist attacks in Indian history, known as the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, unfolded in India's financial capital. 10 armed terrorists from the Pakistan-based terrorist group Lashkar-e-Taiba infiltrated the city by sea and launched a series of coordinated attacks at prominent locations, including the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, Oberoi Trident Hotel, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Railway Station, Nariman House, Leopold Cafe and Kama Hospital. Armed with automatic rifles and grenades, the attackers unleashed havoc for nearly 4 days, holding hostages, engaging in gun battles, and leaving 166 innocent people dead, including 18 security personnel. Over 300 were injured, and the scars of that tragedy remain vivid in the collective memory of the nation.
Still, I feel that this is not a complete justice to the departed soul, because the person who hatched criminal conspiracy behind the terror attack of 26 November are still scot-free in Pakistan. They are moving. This is really pain to me. It really pains to me because this person, that is Hafiz Saeed and Zakir Rahman Lakvi, who hatched criminal conspiracy of terror attack of 26 November, are still moving. Not only moving, but the Pakistan has not taken any action till this time against these persons.
Among the attackers, Ajmal Kasab was the sole terrorist captured alive. His arrest not only exposed the direct role of Lashkar-e-Taiba, but also laid bare the complicity of Pakistan's intelligence apparatus in planning this carnage. Kasab's trial, conviction, and eventual execution in 2012 highlighted India's commitment to justice, yet it underscored the stark reality of Pakistan's inaction.
Challenge before me in Kasab trial was not only to hang Ajmal Kasab by establishing his role in the court of law, but to prove that the whole attack was sponsored by Lashkar-e-Taiba, and it is not only sponsored, but some of the few security apparatus of Pakistan had helped these attackers. Our people have intercepted the entire conversation of during those 3 days, and we produced the said conversation in the court of law.
On the 16th anniversary of 26/11 attacks, political leaders across India, from President Draupadi Murmu to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and police personnel, paid tribute to the victims and honored the bravery of the security forces. International figures too remember this dark chapter. The Consul General of Israel for Midwest India, Kobi Shoshani, paid homage at Nariman House, a site that bore the brunt of the terrorists' cruelty.
I was sent to here right after the events, 2 or 3 days after the events. It was in 2008. I still remember the suit. I still remember the ammunition smell. It was very terrible.
And more than a decade after,
India has consistently demanded Pakistan hand over Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 26/11 attacks, and other perpetrators like Zakir Rahman Lakvi. However, Pakistan's so-called anti-terror actions are nothing but a smokescreen. Hafiz Saeed has faced sham trials and remained protected under Islamabad's patronage, while Lakvi was released on bail in 2015 and continues to operate freely. These pseudo-actions highlight Pakistan's duplicity, claiming to fight terrorism while sheltering its architects. The country which harbors the largest number of internationally listed terrorists, continues to face global condemnation for its failure to act against terror financing and cross-border terrorism. Moving on, Pakistan is grappling with unprecedented political unrest as recently supporters of Imran Khan took to the streets in massive protests against his detention. The demonstrations intensified with violent clashes erupting in the heavily guarded red zone, leaving several casualties. The government's sweeping crackdown on the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party has plunged the nation into deeper turmoil, sparking concerns about its democratic future. With tensions escalating and no resolution in sight, Pakistan stands at a crossroads, facing an uncertain and volatile path ahead. A report.
On November 27, Pakistani security forces launched a major operation in the heart of Islamabad, targeting supporters of Imran Khan, who had gathered to demand his release. The midnight raid marked a dramatic escalation in the ongoing protests, which began with Khan's supporters storming the capital the day before on November 26. Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister and leader of the opposition Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party, has been imprisoned since August of the previous year. His supporters have called for his immediate release, staging protests across the country, which have grown increasingly tense. The protests in Islamabad intensified as thousands of demonstrators led by Khan's wife Bushra Bibi broke through multiple security lines and converged on the city's highly fortified red zone, a critical area housing government buildings, including the parliament and foreign embassies, all heavily guarded by the military. The violence that ensued resulted in multiple casualties, including both security forces and PTI supporters. Khan's party PTI had called for a sit-in protest within the red zone, vowing to remain until Khan's release. This bold move added fuel to an already volatile political situation, with tensions running high. In response, the government took a firm stance against the demonstrators. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi declared that no negotiations would take place with the protesters, accusing them of being heavily armed and engaging in violent confrontations with security forces.
It seems like a rather critical juncture here. And at the same time, one which it's hard to predict how it's going to end. But things have come to a head, and they've been boiling for a long time. But now what we have, as I see it, is the kind of confrontation between the establishment and the PTI, led, of course, by Imran Khan. And only one of them can emerge from this standing. It's something which we've had battles between them before, but now Imran Khan is putting all of his cards on the table.
The escalating violence on the streets had raised alarming concerns about Pakistan's stability. The midnight raid, part of a sweeping crackdown on those affiliated with Imran Khan's PTI party, underscores a troubling escalation in the confrontation between Khan's supporters and the military-led government. The crackdown not only signals a tightening of the government's grip on power, but also highlights the deepening divide within the country. This growing conflict threatens to further destabilize Pakistan, pushing it closer to a crisis of legitimacy.
How it resolves, as I said here, is rather unpredictable. But I think what we can say is that the resolution, whatever it is going to tell us a lot about Pakistan going forward. It will either be a government now which makes a transition toward a PTI-led regime, or it's going to be a rather heavy-handed military effort to suppress those forces which are challenging it.
As the situation continues to unfold, Pakistan's political future hangs in the balance. The government's handling of these protests will likely determine whether the country moves towards a new political era under PTI's leadership, or if the military will tighten its grip, intensifying efforts to suppress opposition and maintain control. The outcome could reshape the nation's political landscape, with profound implications for its democratic future.
In recent months, Jammu and Kashmir has witnessed a surge in terrorist activities, raising serious concerns about the evolving threat dynamics in the region. From attacks on civilians to marketplaces and security forces, the situation points to a deliberate escalation orchestrated from across the border. Here's a report. 9 terrorist attacks in just 15 days have shaken Jammu and Kashmir, with signs pointing to the involvement of highly trained foreign terrorists. After a period of relative calm, Pakistan-backed terrorists have ramped up their attacks, spreading violence from Rajouri and Poonch into other districts like Kishtwar, Doda and Riyasi. Since the beginning of this year, 44 people, including 18 security personnel and numerous civilians, have lost their lives to terror attacks orchestrated from across the border. Civilians too are under constant threat, with targeted killings and ambushes becoming Pakistan's favoured tactics to sow fear and chaos. Despite Pakistan's claims of non-involvement, intelligence and on-ground evidence point to Islamabad's direct hand in this proxy war. Terrorist training camps, logistical support and funding networks continue to thrive on Pakistani soil, fueling an unending cycle of violence in Jammu and Kashmir. India's security forces face growing challenges, including a decline in local intelligence networks and the use of sophisticated communication systems by terrorist groups. Meanwhile, Pakistan appears to be shifting its tactics, abandoning older operatives in favor of decentralized networks and young recruits to aid infiltration and logistics. The attacks also reflect a dangerous focus on communal targeting, with instructions to terrorists emphasizing attack on Hindu civilians and pilgrims. This shift suggests a deliberate attempt to exploit communal tensions in India's heartland. To shed more light on this alarming trend and its broader implications, we are joined by Dr. Abhinav Pandya, founder and CEO of Usanas Foundation, who has extensively studied the dynamics of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show. So, what strategic objectives might Pakistan be pursuing with the recent upsurge in terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir?
I feel that actually Pakistan's support to terrorism in Kashmir, it never actually stopped. There were breaks in between, but they were for the purely practical measures. Now, coming back to the strategic objectives, I guess strategic objectives still primarily at a fundamental level, they continue to be the same. That is bleeding India through 1,000 cuts, creating fault lines within India and keep India completely bogged down in Kashmir, damage its economy. These are the fundamental objectives. But as of now, it seems that right now, they feel that they want to ramp up terrorism in Kashmir because after the abrogation of Article 373, they could not do much, and they lost their credibility among the people who follow separatist ideology in Kashmir. They were expecting Pakistanis to come to their rescue and create major terror attacks or fund protest and unrest, but they could not do at that time because the government of India had done massive crackdown on terrorist organizations as well as terror funding. But now they are just trying to gather their strength back and arrange these terror attacks and just get back the kind of trust which they had lost.
So, what are the major challenges faced by Indian security forces due to technological advancements in weapons and communication among terrorist groups?
over the last few months, I mean, not few months, or at least 1 or 2 years, Pakistan has again, almost, kind of got their, strength back in the technical side. Basically, they're using ultrasets. The militant, the terrorist commanders now and the terrorist operatives, they're using a new kind of device called ultraset, which is still, which has not been encrypted yet. I mean, so the communication is totally encrypted from one side to the other side, and the security forces have not been able to decrypt it. Sorry, to decrypt it. No, so that's why there is no access to what's going on between them. Secondly, they have changed their intelligence and their the terror tactics, basically their methodology. So they're not using their old OGWs anymore. They have hired a completely new set of OGWs who are younger faces and who are not exposed. They don't have a background with the police and security forces, and these are mostly young girls and boys. And they're not like the previous OGWs who had a lot of knowledge about the internal activities of the terrorist group. So these young boys and girls are given a particular task and the information purely on a need to know basis, and they don't have any idea what's happening behind by the larger actors, and they are playing a crucial role in delivering of weapons and everything.
In your experience, what evidence points to the direct involvement of Pakistan's military and ISI in fueling terrorism across the border?
Well, I guess, as far as evidence is concerned, I'm told that, already our security forces have come across intercepts, in which, they have discussed about the huge accumulation of terrorists in the launch pads. And right now, if you see, the terrorists who are coming in Kashmir right now, they are highly trained militants, and they have a very new kind of advanced weapons like M4 assault rifles with the high quality night vision devices. And they are mostly from the Afghanistan, the weapons which were left by the NATO forces. So when all these things are happening, so certainly, it is more than evident that they cannot, generally happen without the watchful eye without any knowledge of the ISI. Obviously, all these things are happening under the watchful eye of the ISI.
Thank you so much for your insights, sir.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.